All right. Let's start with our middle table. Oh, all right.
Well, we kind of decided to go with how you're basically trying to express like something that happened in your life for empathy, how you say your parent died, but if you're trying to explain how you're feeling to someone who's never felt that, then they're not gonna understand exactly how, there's no way to explain how you feel, because unless you felt it, you can't. So it's like, you can get the general across, but nothing really in depth.
So in expressing that, you have to consider the other person's experiences and you're trying to encode it in a way that they would understand.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, group over here, what'd you have?
Sure. Okay. I just brought up the idea of maybe cutting ties off with a person, maybe like a boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend type of thing, because they're a toxic type of individual. You need to like put the right words together to get the point across and not come off as an a-hole or something like that.
Or give them the wrong idea
Yeah.
that you know, you'd be willing to talk to them.
Yeah.
Of course, like the non-communication, ghosting a person. That person's over there trying to decode that. They haven't actually sent me a note, and I've sent them like 5 notes, and it's been 3 days, so what's going on? So that can go in both directions. Okay, group over here.
We talked about like how to like give a direction, and maybe like at my job we have to sanitize everything. And so if you just say, can you go sanitize that, like what is that? Because there's a lot of things you have to do. So just being direct and trying to say certain things.
Good.
Can I add something on to what you said?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of hard with non-English speakers too, because I deal with a lot of non-English speakers at my job. Like, for example, we had a man from the Congo, and they speak French there. He didn't speak any English. I speak a little bit of French, and I was like, Jim O'Brien, forgot what the rest I said, but yeah, it's kind of hard with non-English speakers and deaf people too. I've dealt with that before. Yeah, and
Those are very, very good, real examples from culture to culture about how we are trying to pull upon the experiences of others in order to encode. And it's very difficult for people from other cultures to decode when they're first being immersed in a different culture. So those are excellent examples. Let's move over here to our fabulous 3.
What kind of stood out to me was just kind of where you talked about like with sarcasm. And the first thing that popped in my head was relationships, where a girl tells her boyfriend, yeah, I'm fine, and she's not fine.
Okay, so yes, mixing those verbal and nonverbal. Obviously, whoever's doing that wants to make it clear that something's not fine, but for whatever reason, they may not be ready for the conversation. It may not be appropriate at the time, but that's very good. Decoding relationships are hard. All right, group over here.
We also did, we talked about sarcasm and how that makes it easier to insult people. And he said to him, he's like, I like how your glasses are upside down on your hat. And that was like a joke saying, I think it's kind of weird that you put your glasses upside down on your hat.
Right, and you have to decode that. Also knowing the difference between friendly banter and, a serious life. So those are things that we have different agreements for that with culture to culture. So in some cultures, it's totally fine. It's a way of bonding with another person. But in other cultures, those agreements aren't there. So that's a great example. Other things we can think of, texting with emoticons or abbreviations, everything that we do. Considering if you are texting a friend, a buddy, a niece, or a parent, they're going to see that differently. So those are things to consider with this encode and decode. So I think we generated a good conversation to think about this. If you were to see an example on the test, 2 examples of encode / or and decode, would you be able to identify which is encoding and which is decoding? Okay, so briefly, encoding does what to a message?
Adds on, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, so then what is decoding then? We're destroying the message. Deconstructing. It's demolition. All right, so now that we have the central parts of this concept out of the way, let's move up through this model, the channel. What's a channel? It's like a TV, okay? And what's a TV doing? Okay, it's whatever we are delivering that message upon. So it could be our words, it could be the nonverbal language, it could be a text message, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be a TV channel, a radio, whatever it is, that visual aid, that's what the channel is all about. So we can have multiple channels for one message. Other things, feedback. Feedback is either negative or positive, and that determines the flow of the communication. So positive feedback means that, it doesn't mean that you agree with the person, so I want to make sure that that's crystal clear. It means that whatever's going on in that communication, the communicators feel more open to communicate even more. So if I disagree with you and I'm like, you know, Katie, I don't agree with this point of view, but I really want to know where you came to that place. Would you tell me more about your experiences? And if I'm doing this in a way that's genuine, and so I don't have that sarcasm behind there, I really want to know, then that will be an open communication. So we don't have to agree with each other to have that positive feedback. We just have to be in that place to open that up. Now, negative feedback is when we feel shut down in that flow of communication. So something's happening and that person is giving you signals in some way, and they may say it verbally, or they may have all those nonverbal signs, I'm fine, not now sign, then that is a negative feedback. And that negative feedback says, for some reason, this person doesn't want to move forward, so you'll feel hesitant to that. Now, sometimes people will say, doesn't matter, this has got to get out right now. Okay, you're going to listen to it even if you don't like it. Not necessarily that they will, but you know, that person may pursue that more. It's not the most effective way to communicate, and the communication will be hindered in some way, at least on the other end. So positive, negative feedback affects the flow of communication. Then as we move on these outer parts, they start to blend into each other. So if we're looking at noise, we have external noise and internal noise. So external noise, that's stuff on the outside. What would be examples of external noise? Yeah, that would be internal. So what is external? What would be examples of external noise? Yeah, TV, other people talking. Okay, bad phone reception. All those things are external noise. Internal noise. That's your monologue going on. Talking to ourselves. That stuff. Okay, what do we talk about? All right. So if it's right before a shift, and you are sitting in a class and you're like dreading going there, that may be distracting you from actually the conversation that's happening in front of you. So those are some barriers. What else would be an internal noise? Yes, yes, absolutely. Anxiety is a part of that. And that can actually go into some of those physical things. So it doesn't have to necessarily be anxiety, but other things. So you could be warm, you could have your heart racing about something. You know, anybody have that where your ears are like pounding? Okay, so for whatever reason, maybe you're nervous about something. So those are things that can hinder our ability to be a part of this communication fully. Okay, so you can be happy. You buy something that you're really excited about, a new computer, a new phone, and somebody's trying to talk to you and you just want to play with it. So that's a barrier. Okay, how about when you're cold? It's cold out there. Is that hard to communicate? If you're too warm? Hungry? I'm sorry, I can barely listen if I'm hungry. All right, other things? Oh, yeah, this is the class that likes food, right? Were we talking about that? Yeah. So, yeah. So we understand each other. So that hunger does it. You have a headache, you have a cold, you don't feel well. Those are all barriers. And then the big one, bias. Okay, there's that person, they're going to talk about that thing which you don't agree with. They're all pro it, you're all against it, or whatever it is, wherever that position is. And the moment they open their mouth about that thing, what happens?
They get shut down.
Yeah, at least in here. Yeah. I mean, it could be, it's like, don't even start. I don't want to hear about it. But definitely internally, you're saying to yourself, oh boy, here we go again. I don't want to hear it. So those are some barriers that we can have. As we move to the outer skirts, and I've already started talking about environment, but it's also part of noise. Things like the way a room is situated. If we were in all rows over here, our conversation wouldn't be like this. It would be much different. So this opens up communication for all of us. If we had a few windows in here, nice. If it was a different color, it'd be different. So all these things make a difference in how we're able to communicate. Other things could be the time of day. And how many of you can have a bright, shiny, long, deep, meaningful conversation at 6 a.m.?
I get off work at 6 a.m.
Our morning people, 3 in every crowd. Okay, how many of you, no matter what, you're like, just tired all day, and then midnight comes and you're like, I can't go to sleep, I'm wide awake. Okay, there's our night owls right here. All right, so it's going to make a difference when to have a conversation with a person. Sometimes, in my experiences with a lot of people, it's not first thing in the morning, but with a few people it is, and then others it's later on. So you want to consider that. Consider yourself. Where do you fall in that? Where are you better at communicating? Did we cover everything? Fantastic. Okay. Any questions about this? If you were to have 5 to 7 questions only about this lecture in the first exam, would you feel comfortable answering those questions? Multiple choice. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to cover anything more today on chapter 1. I may revisit some things, but I want to make sure that we get through a couple of different things today. So what I'd like you to do, we're going to have a quick activity to change gears a little bit and just have a little bit of fun. So I would like you to pair up with somebody not at your table, and preferably just one person, somebody that's not your same gender. So. There you go. We have availability back there.